everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. Today's video we're starting off strong right with a knife. So this is not an activity meant for children. I'm showing you how I made a miniature laundry room diorama inside of an old detergent bottle. So if that's something that interests you, then feel free to keep watching. First things first, I emptied out my entire, this is an old bottle, so I used everything and then washed it out, made sure there was nothing left, emptied out whatever gunk was left in the bottom, and then once everything was dry and clean, I went ahead and cut out the front panel using this X-Acto knife / scalpel blade looking thing, and then I cleaned up the edges before tracing the bottom of it onto a piece of cardboard. This piece of cardboard is going to act as the flooring. Because the bottom of the bottle is uneven, I did have to put some extra cardboard underneath of this piece. I also drew it very not centered, so I redrew it and I'm now cutting it out with a different X-Acto knife. And this is just to make sure that whatever I'm putting inside is not going to fall over. I don't know if this is the case with all detergent bottles, like depending on the brand or whatever, but that's just how it happened with this specific Tide bottle. So now I'm just fitting it in place. You can see that it's not a perfect fit, but I figured I could just kind of slide it around a bit, and as long as the gap was at the back, then it really wouldn't matter that much. Okay, so the picture up on the screen right now is the balsa wood pieces that I cut out and all of the dimensions there. So I used 2mm thick balsa wood and then cut out one back panel, 3 sides of the shelves, a right shelf, a few left shelves, and then a top piece. It will all make sense once you see the final project, but if you want to do this yourself, those are the measurements and dimensions that I used for my detergent bottle and the 2mm thick balsa wood. Now we're going ahead, after cutting those pieces out and using poor man's wood stain, it's basically just watered down acrylic paint, and going ahead and painting each and every single one of these pieces that we've cut out. You don't really have to slather it on too thick, because then it kind of covers up the wood grain and then it kind of leaves water spots on the other side. So I did learn this through trial and error. A couple of the pieces are a little bit more crunchy than others, I guess. After everything is dry, then I went ahead and started gluing them all together. So I'm starting with the side shelf, actually, like the side of the shelf, sorry. And then I'm gluing on the individual shelf pieces onto the side piece. So these are approximately 3 centimeters apart. I'm just lining them up using my ruler on the side there. And then after all of these pieces are in place, I believe I glued on the back panel before I glued on the other side. I incorrectly measured because I forgot to factor in the thickness. So the measurements that I showed you were correct if you're using 2mm thick balsa wood. So I just ended up having to patch a couple holes using some brown cardboard that you can't really see. This is what I mean by the side shelf also, is this like extra little piece here. This is the top. So we have our left shelves, which is like a cabinet basically, and then the side shelf, which will go above our washer and dryer. After that side shelf and top is attached, then I can put on the final side, and you can see those little cracks in the back that I have. So I did just have to fix those up with the brown cardboard, and it was a pretty easy fix. So that's what the shelf looks like. And now on the screen is another picture for the washing machine and dryer that I used. So I cut these out of strips of cardboard. If you had a wider piece of cardboard available, on the right hand side of the picture, I have the like alternative cutting if you didn't cut the sides out separately. So you basically would make like a cross shape, and then it would fold into a nicer box, and then you wouldn't have to do what I did. And again, there was just a bunch of holes because measuring cutting is not my strong suit. But anyways, it's 6 by 4 by 5 centimeters, and then they fold up into nice little cubes. And I made sure that that was the scale that I wanted before deciding on the size of the shelf. So just make sure that everything is going to fit if you're going to be stacking your elements together. So I painted the top and bottom of the washing machine white because I had this plan to use this printer paper and glue it onto the front and have it long enough so that it would wrap around the sides. And this is how I attached the sides to the washing machine. If you cut your sides out of the same piece of cardboard as the top and bottom, front and back, then you wouldn't have to do this. So you can tell that the sides don't fit quite right. But because they're in the shelf, I didn't worry about it too much. So this one that I'm doing here is the washing machine. I added that piece of like shiny, dark grayish black cardboard into the hole to kind of give the illusion of depth. For the dryer, I did not cut. I think I did cut a hole by mistake, but I ended up not doing that. I just went with a solid door, which is sort of a rounded square shape on the one side and then 90-degree corners on the other, and then I used a very small piece of cardboard for the handle. Now to make the little dial, I thought I was being super smart and using the little hole punch, shavings, droppings, whatever you want to call them, out of the hole puncher. And then I used these piano key looking pieces of paper as the buttons, and this is just being glued onto a piece of black craft paper. And then I went ahead with my light blue gel pen and just drew some lines to indicate as if they were lights lighting up on the machines. I did the same for the washer and dryer because my one in my own house is very similar on both of them. And then once everything was attached and drawn on, I did actually end up cutting the circle part away from the square, as you can see here, and it just made like a nice little design. So that is the lid, or the door, I guess, for the washing machine, and it's just a piece of clear plastic hot glued to the back of a circular donut shape of cardboard that I painted silver. The next thing I did was I cut up a bunch of toothpicks and made a drying rack. My hand covered the majority of this footage, so I cut out most of it. I'm sorry I can't show you that, but I did make a little drying rack. Onto other props, I made a, I don't even know what you would call this, but like a rope basket to serve as the laundry hamper. So I used a bunch of embroidery floss, and I was wrapping it around my fingers and was gonna like Mod Podge it on top of that, but I didn't really like the shape that was turning out. So what I ended up doing was wrapping it around the top of my glue stick and then using a watered down Mod Podge mixture to seal it in that way. And that seemed to work a lot better actually. After it was all glued and dried, I did dry brush it because the Mod Podge changed the color a little bit. Moving into the other little props, I made these ones out of oven bake clay. So this is just white oven baked clay, nice and plain. And the detergent bottles, I tried to keep them to the 1 to 12, whatever it is, miniature scale, which is, I believe, many dollhouse figurines are 1 to 12, or maybe that's just normal for miniatures. I don't really know. Anyways, I'm making detergent bottles. The one that you just saw was like the actual detergent bottle. This one here that I'm currently cutting is going to be like a spray can of some sort of cleaning supplies. I do paint the brands without the names on them later, but so it's going to be like a Lysol spray. This one's just a random bottle of what will be green soap. And then this one that takes 800 years to try and mold into the right shape is like a bottle of Clorox bleach. The bleach bottle is the biggest one of them all, and it is 2 centimeters by 1 centimeter. That's why I have my little ruler there, just to make sure that I'm keeping everything relatively small because I don't want things to look disproportionate. There are some things that are a little bit wonky, like I think the drying rack is probably a little bit too small. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much the right size. Because these are so small, it did take a little bit of finagling to get them exactly where I wanted them to be. So they're not the smoothest, but I'm still pretty happy with the way that they all turned out. Again, because this is like on a very small scale, apparently my filming skills are not the best for this. So unfortunately, quite a bit of the footage for me making these little clay things, as well as me painting them, is either out of focus or my hands aren't even in the frame. And it's just because everything is so small, I have to bring it like closer to my face so I can see what I'm doing. So I apologize for that. But the other prop I'm making is a little toolbox. So to make little screwdrivers, I took eye pins, folded them kind of in half, and then used some clay around the bottom part. Then I made a little hammer using a chopped up toothpick and clay for the top hammer part. Right now I'm making a little wrench, so I used a flat piece of clay and then kind of haphazardly cut these pieces out and rounded them into a sort of wrench shape. It's a little bit boxy to be a wrench and probably disproportionate, but I'm not used to making things this small, so I did try my best here. And then I don't believe I showed it, but I did make a pair of pliers as well. So you can see what I mean here about the focusing. Fantastic, right? So here I am just painting my little clay things. I'm painting my Clorox bottle blue, and here I'm painting my little Windex bottle, the top of it red. Not sponsored by any of these brands, but I wanted them to be recognizable. The only one that I didn't follow like a brand for was that random green soap bottle, because I just wanted to make a bottle that shape and I really wasn't sure what to do with it. I just wanted it to be green and be that shape. So now another prop is little cardboard boxes. So for these ones, I have the measurements there. You can change pretty much any of the measurements here and it will just make a different size of box. And then I just add that little 1/4 inch flap no matter what size you're making it, just so that it's a little bit easier to glue together. So this is the biggest box that I made, and then I made two that were half the size. So one of the half the size ones is this one that I painted red here, and it is the toolbox. So I'm just kind of showing you how I glued them together. So I used these bottom flaps and just kind of went one side at a time to glue them together. I added a piece of silver cord as the handle to make it look like a metallic metal handle. And then we're moving into the ironing board. So this is more balsa wood that I tried my best to cut into a round shape. And then I just glued it onto a piece of, not quite cardstock, but like thicker decorative paper. It's meant for scrapbooking. And then I just origami folded my way through the paper around those round corners. So I ended up cutting a bunch of random pieces out of it so that it would lay sort of flat. And it is a little bit lumpy, but the idea was for it to hang on the wall. So that's not really the end of the world here. Because this is slightly thicker paper because it's meant for scrapbooking, it was more challenging to fold around all the corners. I'm sure there was a way that I could have done this that would have made the back look a little prettier, but I was going to glue it to the wall. So like I said, it doesn't really matter at that point. I chose this pattern because I wanted the rest of the room to be like a really pale blue, and the color I tried to mix paint-wise for the room, I wanted to match to this, just to have a little bit more cohesiveness with the whole piece here. So you can see how long I fought with this piece of paper. I ended up kind of just pushing the corners down on the desk to try and round them out because they were quite boxy. And eventually we got there. And then I just glued some popsicle sticks on the back for the legs. I ended up making cabinet doors for my side shelf there. So there I am gluing them on. And now I'm just putting all of my tools in my toolbox. Originally, I was just going to have everything sitting in the shelves, just kind of willy-nilly. But then I was like, well, like I can't really photograph it, and I can't put it on my shelf and display without worrying about all of these little pieces falling out. So I did end up just gluing everything in. So that's the little toolbox there. And then here's my laundry basket. I did make a little clay kitty, half of one, to stick out the side. So he's like poking out from underneath of the clothes. And then I cut all of these itty bitty tiny little clothes out of old clothes that I was going to donate. I think I used like one shirt and one pair of like teeny tiny shorts. So the rest of the clothes will still be donated. Don't worry about that. And then the rest that were sacrificed for this project. But I think it turned out so cute just to have the little kitty poking out from underneath of the laundry. So I did like cut shapes. I cut little clothes out. Can you tell what the clothes are once they're in the bin? Debatable. But the thought was there, and it's the thought that counts, right? So I also debated not gluing the cat down. I don't think I ended up gluing it down just so that I could move it around if necessary. So it's one of maybe 2 items that I didn't glue down. That is the last prop that I filmed. The other ones that I made that I did not film were a miniature roll of paper towel, as well as the iron that you can see on the left side of the screen next to the toolbox there. And then that little garbage can looking thing, whatever you want to call it, garbage can, mop bucket. Oh yeah, I also made a mop. It's actually just a metal thimble. And then I also made a box of old Christmas decorations and another cardboard box that I mentioned. So here we are moving into the painting. This is that light blue color that I mixed up. The plastic was quite slippery, so I probably should have sanded the entire thing before starting to paint it. It did take 3 or 4 coats to get a nice even finish, but oh, love that for me. Once it was all painted on the inside, I installed my flooring, which was just another piece of scrapbook paper, and then I started hot gluing everything in. I also chose to paint the outside of the detergent bottle white just to make everything the same color. So here I am just adding all of my little trinkets and little doodads in there, and it fills up the space so nicely. I'm so happy with it. Here is the final shot of it. If you enjoyed this pseudo tutorial, make sure to leave a like on the video, comment down below, let me know what your favorite little part of this was. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really love this project and I'm looking forward to doing more sculptures and miniatures in the future. I know I've been making a lot of sculptures recently, but that's just kind of where my heart is right now. So maybe I'll make some other art soon. But anyways, I hope you have a lovely week and I will see you all in the next video.